So here's a random fact for you. Did you know that in 1997, there was a study carried out at Bradford Royal Infirmary, and it showed that on a full moon, more people were admitted with dog bites than at any other time in the month? Now, why am I telling you this? Well, it's because there's a question that people either dismiss instantly out of hand or never quite shake, and that is whether or not it's possible that our lives are influenced by the movements of the planets. So for myself, I've always been quite open-minded and inquisitive about the different belief systems, and that's whether it's organised religion or philosophy or some of the more esoteric and mystical traditions that sit just outside what the mainstream is. And this isn't to necessarily blindly believe them, but almost to try and figure out what other people are saying about this relationship with that power that's greater than us, and how that power that's greater than us can have an impact on us on this life journey that we're on. And on top of that, I've recently started to feel out of sync to an extent, and maybe some of you have as well. Maybe there's heightened emotions, like waking up in the middle of the night when normally you'd sleep through. Changes, beginnings, endings, all of these, global level sort of changes that are occurring that we see, and it seems absolutely chaotic. Now, with all of these endings, beginnings, changes, starts, rebirths, etc., a lot of people would just say it's down to happenstance, it's down to circumstance, it's just the way that life unfolds. But if you listen to astrologers, they will tell you something very different. And right now, we're being told that there's this alignment of 7 planets that's never happened in the last sort of 100 years, and it's having this massive impact on us. And so I suppose the jury will be out, or your belief will be out, as to which one is accurate. Whether or not astrology is just all some made up mumbo jumbo, or whether it actually has the impact and effect of understanding the planets and their relationship to us. So anyway, we want to look at a bit more of this, because what we're trying to do is identify what astrologers were saying. And that was, or is that, the position of the planets, their alignment with each other and with us, set conditions in motion long before we experience them, and so therefore they become predictable. Now, where does this idea come from? Well, astrology isn't new. It's not just come about with your tabloids or social media. It goes back thousands of years, and this is to the ancient civilisations such as Mesopotamia, where early astronomer priests, they were observing the sky because it was the only thing that they could actually track. And this is where structures like Stonehenge would come from, because that was a way of being able to monitor solstices, because then you could predict over a period of time what was happening on Earth in relation to what was happening in the skies. And then the Babylonian Empire sort of further developed this, and they actually started to put in these structured systems of astrology, which were later refined by the Greeks. And what they did was try to systemize that relationship between the heavens and human life. Now, for most of history, astronomy, which is the study of the stars, and astrology, which is their impact on us, they weren't separate disciplines. The sky was seen as one physical system and also a symbolic one, but it was something to be measured, something to be interpreted, because there was a clear relationship between what was going on up there and what was going on the planet with us or our ancestors. But if we fast forward to today, most people would entirely separate those two disciplines. Astronomy is seen as a science, and astrology is seen as something else completely. And yet there are still things that we can observe which are very real. The moon. Think about that, okay? We know that the moon affects the tides. That's not theory. That's measurable, it's predictable, and it's undeniable. The gravitational pull of the moon as it rotates around the Earth is literally moving the oceans, and it doesn't stop there. There are long-standing observations around the lunar cycles and human behaviour, links to sleep patterns, mood. How many people, don't sleep well on a full moon? And as I've said to you right at the beginning, there's that anecdotal increase in incidences of dog bites, on a full moon. The menstrual cycle itself closely mirrors the lunar cycle. Now, we can all debate how closely related these connections are, but the point is this: the moon clearly has an effect on Earth and on life within it. So if it's dragging oceans, which are made of water, and we're like 98% water, it's clearly going to be able to have the same impact on us as it spins around the planet. So then the question becomes, if one celestial body can have that level of influence, what about the others? What about the planets with a far greater mass, greater distance? Yes, but they're still part of the same system that we exist in. Is it completely unreasonable to ask whether there are forces at play that we don't fully understand? Or is that where the curiosity should begin? Because there's another angle to this as well. Even if you didn't at all believe that the planets directly influence human behaviour, there's still the question of belief itself. What happens if certain individuals or certain groups, certain states, whatever, study these systems in depth, not necessarily because they believe in them, although they may, but because they know that we do. And so therefore, if they understand the psychology of masses of the human population because they're reading their horoscopes, what happens if they then started to implement their own agendas using these same patterns? Because it becomes more predictable, it becomes more expected. And then the flip side to that as well is, what happens if the astrological movements are legitimately having an impact on us and these same groups know that, and then that allows them to interfere or influence what we're doing because it's already in the stars, literally. And if behavior becomes predictable, it becomes influenceable, and there's no denying that either. So to end really, is astrology a force acting on people or a framework that people are using to act upon us? Because if it's the latter one, who is in control? Who is actually dictating all of the events? Is it the, higher power, God, or whatever we want to refer to it as? Or is it people just understanding the systems of the universe and using it to manipulate us? Because ultimately, we're being we're being manipulated and influenced by forces beyond our comprehension. But the difference is whether it's like God, the cosmic sort of cycle, environmental, or these nefarious agendas being played out on us. And suppose, just to end on it, are we completely dictated to? So everything that we think is happening in our life because of our choices, because of fate, because of karma, it's all just preordained? Or are we actually agents of free will? I don't know. What do you think?